Yeah, it sure is, Colleen. The subject in question is that
Your mic's gone.
on the a white Harley Davidson fleeing through West Hills across underneath, I should say, underneath the 101 into the hills just south of the 101. This is a suspect who was held up inside of a home. Officers responding to a domestic dispute inside that home. When officers got there, they arrived and encountered that suspect with a weapon. He pointed the gun at police officers and somehow managed to get on his motorcycle, bypassing first responders and then fleeing the scene of that barricade scene. And now you can see the pursuit is on as he continues at a high rate of speed up Old Topanga Road to Old Topanga Canyon Road with about a half a dozen black and whites behind him. So they did not recover that gun at the scene. It is believed that he may still be armed and very dangerous as he's refusing to pull over, stopping for some of the stoplights and stop signs, obeying some laws, but refusing to pull over and ignoring all of the commands by those pursuing units. You can see they've fallen back just a little bit as he has picked up a little bit of speed, and the fact that he is on a motorcycle is really going to complicate things. Very serious charges. They're going to stop at nothing to get him, but they're not going to be able to continue at the high rates of speed that that motorcycle is capable of. They do have the assistance of that LAPD airship overhead calling out the location. They're going to have to triangulate here and get some units ahead of him, but they're not going to be able necessarily to follow at the extreme speeds, even as he makes his way through back on Mulholland Drive here at a high rate of speed. So we'll have to see how they ultimately end this pursuit, but somebody who is wanted for numerous violent charges, numerous violent crimes, I should say, including threatening a police officer. That's right. You know, it's a situation where not only are you protecting the public, but also you have that motorcyclist who, if he wipes out, his safety is obviously a major concern as well. They want him alive, if at all possible, and they're going to try and keep it a safe pursuit, but pursuits inherently are dangerous, and when there are motorcycles involved, they are dramatically more dangerous and more risky, and you can see him at times swerving quite a bit, almost like fishtailing, as he picks up and tries those last-minute maneuvers. You can see they pulled up back behind him. About a football field behind him is that primary unit, and then behind him are a number of other units. Just a moment ago, as we were in that package, he actually was stopped at a red light with a number of black and whites ready to execute that felony arrest, and he just picked up speed as soon as the light turned green, now doing about 85 miles per hour on Mulholland Drive as they try and keep up with this suspect. They've got about, they've got a little while before the sun starts to go down, but as you can see, very hazy out there. That's going to play a role in this, especially for the helicopter who's following above, doing their best to call out the location here, slowing down again for looks like another traffic signal, going around this traffic and continuing through the red light there. So blowing through in a red light, he's actually done a full circle, passing Volmer once again on Mulholland Drive. He's done a full circle, Valmer, through this neighborhood just in the last few minutes. So we're going to see if he takes us back up into that neighborhood where he came from. Maybe he feels more comfortable up there, but right now we are still well south of the 101 freeway here in Woodland Hills. Absolutely. Now he's on the freeway. That's going to help out a little bit if he stays on the freeway. But for as many pursuits as we cover on a routine basis here in Los Angeles, the ones that typically get away, the highest percentage are motorcycles because, again, as you mentioned, all of those traditional tactics are basically wiped off the table, and a motorcycle is obviously capable of traveling so much faster. It's so much more agile and nimble. It's able to squeeze through situations that those black and whites cannot. Now that it's on the 101 southbound, we will see how LAPD changes their tactics. If they decide to call in for some CHP assistance, perhaps handing this off to CHP, that may be unlikely considering the charges that we're looking at here and the number of resources already dedicated as he makes his way through the city of Los Angeles. Just because he's on the freeway, they can still maintain this pursuit, but again, they do have the option of requesting the assistance from the California Highway Patrol as he now hugs that right lane, almost riding the shoulder there on the southbound side of the freeway, taking that very first exit, which appears to be Ventura Boulevard. It's going to put him actually Topanga Canyon Boulevard towards Ventura if he makes that southbound turn there. He took the southbound exit. Yeah, he's going to head back towards Ventura Boulevard on Topanga Canyon. He is on Ventura Boulevard, and it's still Woodland Hills, although as we make our way a little bit further, he's going to enter Tarzana here in the next several seconds. So we're kind of transitioning through Woodland Hills towards Tarzana into the Encino area. If he continues eastbound on Ventura Boulevard, you can see another red light here, stopping at the crosswalk, getting off of busy Ventura Boulevard, now southbound on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, where there is normally much more traffic than this, but as you can see, he's got all the luck today, and he has all of Topanga Canyon Boulevard to himself. As he makes his way southbound, they're going to make the turns with him here, but as long as those speeds remain, well, doing about 40 to 50 on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, they can keep up with him, but if he goes much faster than that, it becomes much more dangerous. Yeah, that's right. This is about the closest glimpse that we've gotten of him. He is, I don't know, roughly in his maybe late 40s, early 50s, I would say, just judging from our vantage point, obviously limited perspective here. But as he makes his way now off of Ventura onto Dumetz Road, a much more narrow residential street here on that Harley, and it looks like those closest units are still managing to keep up with him. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 units that are right on his tail, applying some pressure here in this very residential neighborhood, now turning on to San Feliciano Drive, again back towards the Woodland Hills area. As he was making his way eastbound, he turned south off of Ventura Boulevard and is now going the opposite direction back into Woodland Hills, where he's got these surface streets to maneuver through. But at these speeds, it's a manageable pursuit. Again, the concern is that if he starts driving much more erratically or faster, then they're going to have a different situation on their hands. The good news is motorcycles obviously have much smaller fuel tanks, so he's on borrowed time until that motorcycle runs out of gas. That's exactly right, and for the time being, it appears that this is going to stay in LAPD's jurisdiction. So they have a lot of planning going on in their own quarters, trying to figure out how they could bring this to a safe and peaceful end. If they just continue at this pace, it'll end more naturally, and unless he decides to jump off that motorcycle and engage in a foot pursuit, time is on their side, so they have time to flood the zone with the available resources they have, not only behind him, but up ahead of him, especially if he establishes a pattern here. If he establishes a pattern, They won't be able to use spike strips like they normally would, but at least they'll be ready for him to bring this to as peaceful a resolution as possible. But again, the concern here is that he may very well be armed with that firearm on his person here. Again, this all started with a violent domestic situation, a suspect who eventually refused to come out of his house or apartment, law enforcement showing up only to be faced with a gun in their face. That's when he jumped on that motorcycle, was able to squeeze by fire engines and ambulance, past all of those LAPD officers, and escape that crime scene. Now again on a pursuit that is, it was actually a following. They were following him for upwards of 20 minutes before they actually lit him up, and then the pursuit was engaged, and he has refused to pull over ever since. It was safe driving at first, but as we've joined you, you can see the driving has become quite a bit more dangerous, and he's been much more willing to run through some of those red lights. Here comes another traffic jam here along Topanga Canyon, again at Dumetz. We'll see if he hugs that left lane there or if he goes around some of this traffic. He's got those double yellow lines he's looking at there, maybe looking to split those lanes. Yeah, he's going to squeeze through here, thread the needle through traffic, and then around that turn he goes, making that right turn onto Dumetz. It's very rare. It is rare indeed. You know, these are the ones that tend to get away. And if he's a known suspect, they could always, you know, catch up with him later. But the charges here are a particular concern. So they're going to dedicate as much resources as possible to safely get him off. But as you mentioned, most motorcycle pursuits don't last very long. They just become too dangerous too quickly. It's not worth the risk and liability for most agencies to continue an extended motorcycle pursuit. The original want for a motorcycle pursuit is usually a traffic violation, typically speeding, as motorcyclists often do. This is not the case here. These are violent crimes. We don't even know the extent of some of the background history to this suspect here, or the mental capacity or his mental state. We have no idea what he is capable of, but he is certainly willing to point a firearm at police officers, and that escalates the situation dramatically. Despite the fact that it's a motorcycle, they are going to dedicate whatever resources are available to get him off the road here. And so far, he's actually traveling at a fairly reasonable speed through some of these more residential neighborhoods. And you can see that is allowing boatload, at least upwards of a half a dozen, maybe even close to 10 units following at a safe distance there as they continue this pursuit through Woodland Hills. But as you mentioned, Colleen, motorcycle pursuits do not last very long, and they are indeed rare because it just takes you know, by the time we launch from any motorcycle pursuits, by the time we get there, they are often over. Well, once he got off the 101 freeway, he did a little bit of a loop there, but now he's kind of making this up as he goes along. They appear to be mostly random twists and turns through this neighborhood. You know, these roads in the hills here are pretty squirrely and windy, and there are a fair amount of dead ends. So if he is not familiar with those dead ends, that'll provide an opportunity for him to accidentally end up in a tight corner. But in any event, he is now going back under the 101 freeway, away from the hills, as he now traverses Shoup Street, just past Burbank Boulevard. So he's now no longer in the hills. He's now crossed underneath the 101 freeway, through a red light there with plenty of cross traffic as he blew through that red light, and now continuing northbound on Shoup Avenue, where there's going to be much more opportunity for him to either look for a hiding spot, but also we're talking about more of a grid now. So where you're in the hills, it's much more squirrely and much more windy. These are much more straight and much more manageable surface streets. You can see stopping for the red light, those units opening their doors ready to execute that felony stop, but he is ignoring their commands. So they're pausing with him, but the pursuit's going to continue here through a green light. So sometimes he waits for the green light, other times he just blows right through them. In this case, he stopped, came to a stop, and then continued once the light turned green, continuing northbound on Shoup Avenue, where there are going to be, I think, more units ahead of him, especially as he makes his way further up Shoup. Now turning onto Oxnard Avenue, what appears to be a random right turn, now going eastbound on Oxnard from Shoup. Yeah, very limited in terms of the force that you can employ here. I mean, yeah, they can't shoot at the suspect. That would be unreasonable. He's driving away from them. You have crossfire considerations to take into account. And look at that. They had a less than lethal weapon aimed at him, but he just made that turn there. So they've got both ready if he does come to a stop here or poses any kind of a threat. But I just think they're going to continue to watch him exhaust as much fuel as possible. By my estimation, these appear to be all random turns. He is going in somewhat of a circle here. Not the same streets, not the same roads, but he's going in around these large neighborhoods here. He's no longer in the hills where he was doing something of a loop. He came back under the 101 freeway, which tells me he doesn't have a real clear destination in mind. He's just kind of on a joyride trying to get away here. He saw an opportunity to get on the and flee that crime scene. Well, that was good in the moment. That worked for him. But now getting away from these units in this pursuit is going to be much more challenging for him. The only thing that I could think of is if he escalates this by driving more dangerously and more erratic, then they'll have to pull back on the ground. It'll become too dangerous. They'll have to rely on that air unit, and if the air unit loses sight of him, then he has an opportunity to get away. But that doesn't appear to be happening here. He's traveling at a manageable speed for those ground units, and certainly enough helicopters overhead that it appears unlikely that he's going to get away in this situation, which really, as I mentioned, turns this into more of a joyride until that tank is out of gas. Right, lots of unknowns. And going back to his intentions here, we have now done a full loop. So if you remember, just a few moments ago, we were turned off of Shoup onto Oxnard, and he did a big giant loop as we were trying to guess where he might go. Well, he ended up right back on Shoup and then turned onto Oxnard again. Now he's turned northbound off of Oxnard, but he is really clearly now making this up as he goes along. There is no clear destination in mind. He appears to be somewhat comfortable in the West Valley here, but he is just making up these turns as he goes along. He is not aiming for any particular destination, but if he finds a hiding spot, not out of the question that he might decide to dump the bike and then try and run forward or hide out. But he's got so much pressure on him that the odds are just not in his favor. He's got upwards of half a dozen units, close to 10, maybe even more, and we saw some units even passing him. In fact, he came up on a red light, and we saw an undercover unit that went ahead of him as well. So you can see them every time he stops at these red lights for whatever reason. You can see them opening their doors, ready to execute that stop, and then as you mentioned, Colleen, it turns into a game of cat and mouse, which we see so often by motorists, not only in cars, but obviously, in this case, a motorcycle as well, clearly thinking he's got a shot to get away, but I just don't think it's going to work out for him tonight. Certainly, you can see him stopping for another red light at the crosswalk there, some pedestrians crossing the road there, waiting their turn now. He continues to blow through there again on Topanga Canyon Boulevard now. Yeah, and by the way, he doesn't seem to be on a suicide pact here. He's driving fairly safely about, a little more than half the time, despite the fact that he is going through some red lights when he sees those flashing lights behind him, or occasionally he'll break some of the rules, but he's not driving exceptionally fast at the speeds that that motorcycle is capable of. He's not driving extremely erratic, except to, at some points, trying to navigate and squeeze through some vehicles, only with the purpose of getting away from those officers. But once he finds those openings, he just stops for some of these red lights, stops for some of the red lights, stops for pedestrian traffic, and continues this joyride as he makes it up. But he does not appear to be driving in a way that I'd be overly concerned with him wiping out. He appears to be pretty capable, but certainly it just takes one wrong move, and a motorcycle can become a deadly weapon, or it could become a death machine for that motorist. Absolutely. We've got about 20 minutes left. Sunset comes in about 20 minutes, and then some remaining daylight after that. So figure about a half hour of daylight before he can more easily blend into the darkness of night, and much easier for him to find hiding spots, in which case he could speed off and evade those officers, or he can, well, in this case, he's still stopping for some of these intersections, and as soon as he sees those doors open up, he waits for traffic and continues through the red light here. But they've got about a half hour left before that daylight does indeed become an issue. But the same rules apply to many of the car pursuits that we see, in the sense that they would much rather see this get onto the freeway. Now, he was on the 101 for a brief time. That didn't last long. He got off the freeway. I'm not sure if there was traffic in his way or he just didn't feel comfortable. For whatever reason, he's now going northbound towards the 118 freeway, which is coming up in another couple miles. He'll have another opportunity to get onto the freeway and exhaust some more gas. But it is much safer on the freeway than it is on these surface streets. Nonetheless, for the majority of the time, he has indeed been on surface streets, and in some cases even on very narrow residential streets, where you start to get a little bit more nervous, especially when there is, people out and about. But right now he appears to have Canoga Avenue wide open for him as he comes up on another red light here at Valerio Street, through the green light as it turns green, and continuing the pursuit northbound on Canoga Avenue. I would say we should approach the 118 freeway probably in the next couple of minutes if he continues northbound on Canoga, guys. Yeah, I mean, it's still capable of extreme speeds, but it's a very stable motorcycle as far as motorcycles go. And but it's still just one wrong move, and that could change so quickly. But he does appear to care about his own safety, is what I was trying to say. And it just seems like he's attempting to drive like like a civilized person. He's just refusing to pull over and willing to do what it takes to not go to jail. But again, he's on borrowed time, and he is aware and willing to use the weapon at his disposal if indeed he does still have it on him, which is the assumption that those officers are operating under. They did not recover a gun at the scene. He pointed it at them, but appears that he took it with him. And so that is what really changes the calculations here. When they know that that suspect may be armed and dangerous, that is a big deciding factor on how to proceed forward here. And as long as that is the case, they are going to treat him with kid glove care, despite the fact that he's on that motorcycle. There's really not much they can do. They, like you said, we don't have the typical tactics at their disposal. You can't do a pit maneuver. You can't do a spike strip. You really just have to try and keep up. The name of the game is keeping up with the motorcycle, trying to maintain a visual, whether it's via the ground units or the air units, and then close in on him once he either gets off the motorcycle or runs out of gas. I mean, those are the two ways that this is going to end. It's one or the other. My hunch is, just looking at that helmet, my hunch is that the answer is no. I mean, there are Bluetooth-capable helmets. I know that for a fact, but I don't think that is one of them just at least at first glance. Rob, I don't know if you could tell, doesn't look like a high-tech helmet, but he does look a little more agitated now, a little more animated as he jockeys back and forth, trying to maintain control here. And it looks like he is now widened out a little bit. I just want to see, he's continuing down Sherman Way here, picking up a bit of speed. In fact, let's throw up our real-time speed tracker, doing about 30 miles over the speed limit here on Sherman Way. So picking up some speed, a little faster than we've seen earlier on in this pursuit, but once again, ready to make another random turn into a residential neighborhood off of Sherman onto Woodlake Avenue. Again, all of this area is pretty residential here, although Woodlake happens to have a good 4 to 5 lanes to play with here. Looks like he's gesturing towards the right there. Not sure what that's about, but continuing this joyride nonetheless. Back up north, very noticeably, towards the area where this pursuit began. So he's right back where this started, guys. This is right back where that barricade situation was taking place, where that man with the gun call, they responded to this area, and now he's right back where this all started. Clearly, he is most familiar with this neighborhood, but not only that, look at this. He's going right through the yellow tape, right through the yellow crime scene tape, where there is still a full contingent of LAPD officers, now a cul-de-sac into a dead end here, where he has arrived back home, where this all started apparently, where officers are waiting for him. The joyride is over. He appears to have had his fun for the evening and is now possibly willing to give up here as he gets off of the bike. The fun is over for him. He enjoyed that, guys. This was a game for him from the minute he got on that motorcycle, and now they are taking him down. They are taking him down in the middle of a large crime scene where there are dozens of officers. He drove right into the bee's nest and under the yellow crime scene tape, only to arrive at what appears to be either his home or a residence that he is familiar with. In any event, he brought it right back to where it all started, where they are now taking him into custody. He appears to have given up, but not without a wild joyride through the West San Fernando Valley. No, he's he's basically given up. He's letting them do what they've got to do. They've got to frisk him, make sure there's no threat, no weapons, nothing like that. He may have to be checked out. He tumbled off of that bike, and it looks like they struggled to get that helmet off. But in any event, you could see the number of officers that remained at this location after this pursuit started. After he got through all of these officers to get on that motorcycle and engage in that pursuit, only to end up right back where it appears to have all started, which really proves that this was a game for him. It was a game of cat and mouse, toying with those officers, going on a wild joyride, having his last few moments of freedom, and now appears to be giving up without too much of a fight here. Absolutely. Oh, this could have ended up, much worse. Not only was this a danger to a lot of people on the road, but he could have wiped out, and it could have been very, very ugly. I said he could have dumped the bike or run out of gas, but there was always that third possibility of him wiping out or hurting somebody else. And fortunately, we did not see that happen. There are something dragging there. I'm not sure if they tased him. It looks like they may have actually employed a taser, Colleen, and that looks like the cables that were dragging there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they tased him off of that motorcycle. We'll wait for further confirmation, but it does appear that a taser was employed to get him off of that motorcycle. Right, when he was on that motorcycle in those closing moments, he was fairly animated and agitated. Now he's just kind of resigned to the fact that, he's going to spend the night at Men's Central Jail. I mean, that's basically, his plans are already made. He just was enjoying the ride, as they say, as he engaged in that pursuit. But it could have ended very ugly. Fortunately, we have a peaceful resolution. All's well that ends well, as they say. But, big commotion for this neighborhood. I would imagine a lot of these neighbors have already been asked to stay inside again. We believe this was some kind of a barricade situation when that man with a gun call first came through. But as he arrived home, you could see there was a number of officers with tactical gear ready and almost waiting for him as he made his way back into this cul-de-sac. Oh, absolutely. And I think right now the primary goal is to find that weapon, whether it was on him. We weren't able to see clearly when he was first tased off that bicycle, or motorcycle rather, if they were able to retrieve a weapon. But if they weren't, they've got to retrace some of their steps here and figure out where he dumped that gun, if that's indeed what happened here. So they're going to coordinate here. They're going to debrief, as you mentioned, and of course try and find that weapon as they rack up the charges that this person is going to be facing not too, well, in the coming days here. You got it.